Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the witnesses. I'm going to direct my questions to Mr. Burton regarding the endless delay around the implementation of the Foreign Influence Registry. As you noted, Mr. Burton, the Liberals promised that the Foreign Influence Registry would be up and running 1 year after Bill C-70 received royal assent. 1 year was June of this year. June came and went. It wasn't up and running. The minister said then it would be up and running by September. September came and went. He then said December, and yet here we are almost in December, and no commissioner has been appointed. We have no registry, and I would note that under the legislation, the leaders of recognized parties in the House and the Senate must be consulted on the commissioner, and the appointment of a commissioner must be ratified in the House of Commons and the Senate. So there are a number of processes that haven't happened either. So given that, it would seem to me that we have no idea when the registry is going to be up and running. Is that fair?
Yes. The minister has said it would be coming by the end of this year in his most recent statement to parliamentary committee. The public safety people have been briefing us that it would be coming next spring. There's a suggestion that there are long delays in appointing the commissioner, the need for top secret security clearance and so on. But, when the government needed a fentanyl czar, they seem to be able to do an order in council and get that person in place pretty quick. So I'm puzzled as to why it takes so long to come up with a commissioner. I do see the commissioner as being key. If we can get a strong commissioner who can make these interpretations of the legislation, things like Senator Wu's concern about in association with, to get that clear what it means. What about people who are anticipating future benefits in the Chinese regime if they go along with a Chinese agenda when they're in a position of public trust in the civil service or parliament? What about secondary influence? In other words, a Canadian company that has extensive dealings with Chinese communist business networks that then sponsors a research institution. There are just a lot of questions there, and they really need a commissioner, in my view, a strong commissioner on site, fully qualified, to be able to sort them out. But what seems to be happening now is that public safety is trying to come up with regulations and interpretations which I believe will inhibit the potential independence of the commissioner in making this registry effective and actually getting names of people on the registry. That being said, from my talking to John Garneau, who was an advisor to the Australian Prime Minister when they put together their act, the simple existence of a registry seems to have a dampening effect on politicians who might be induced to get themselves in situations where they become beholden to China or another foreign power. So, we need to get this thing existing. And certainly the fact that we had an election after we had heard that from parliamentary, from a security committee, that there were a significant number of MPs and a slightly larger number of staffers who appeared to be under the influence of a foreign power. It's outrageous to me that the election happened when we didn't have any means to go into this in a fair way to ensure that Canadians are aware of people who may have not been entirely uninfluenced or unable to take the temptation of benefits from a foreign power or subject to a very sophisticated engagement by Chinese entities.
Well, thank you for that. It was first June, then it was September, then it was December. Now you're saying, according to public safety officials, it's spring, but who knows if it will be spring. The Liberals have a long track record of opposing the setting up a foreign influence registry. They campaigned against it. They amplified Beijing's disinformation against Kenny Chiu after he brought forward a private member's bill to establish such a registry. So it seems to me that after years of opposing a registry, the latest tactic from this government is to be one of obstruction through endless delay. Is that fair?
I mean, I think that there is concern probably at the center of government about prominent Canadians, possibly former senior officials who might have to register because of ongoing relationships with the Chinese state. And I have a notion of people that I think might fall into that category. But so long as we don't have a registry, we can't say for sure. You know, it's suspicion, but we really need a registry that makes it clear. And let's bear in mind, I mean, nothing stops you from, say, that large number of people, prominent Canadians, that suggested we should release Meng Wanzhou forthwith from putting a statement in the newspaper to that effect. But, you know, when we found out that Jean Charest was the recipient of a retainer from the Huawei company at the time that he was involved in this activity, that's information that I would have liked to have known at the time.
3 seconds. Thank you so much, Mr. Cooper. We'll go on to...
Mr. Burton, I'd like to get your thoughts on something that you referenced, and that is this government pursuing a strategic partnership with the PRC. During the English language leaders debate during the last federal election, Mark Carney said that the PRC is Canada's biggest security threat, and went on to say that, quote, they are one of the largest threats with respect to foreign interference. Consistent with this, the director of CSIS stated just 2 weeks ago that the PRC is a major threat to Canada's security because of its foreign interference activities. And yet we have Mark Carney's Foreign Affairs Minister talking about a strategic partnership with the PRC, including on matters of security. So how can we square, on the one hand, Mark Carney saying that the PRC is Canada's biggest security threat, backed up by CSIS, all the while his government is pursuing a strategic partnership with a hostile foreign state that is a threat to Canada's security?
It's a great question. I mean, the Strategic Partnership Agreement was signed between Canada and China in 2005. I opposed it at the time. Then when we had the Indo-Pacific policy come up, all of a sudden we forgot about strategic partnerships and talked about disruptive force in affairs. Now we have the strategic partnership back, articulated by Minister Anand and the Prime Minister, as you said. The Chinese interpretation of a strategic partnership goes along with the other stuff that the Prime Minister in his meeting with the Chinese leader Xi Jinping, and indeed the Deputy Minister David Morrison in his speech to the celebration of China's National Day last September, which is that we are buying the Chinese, we're buying into the Chinese language about pragmatic and constructive, and their other language about seeking common ground while setting aside differences. So by using this language, we're essentially saying we're going to do Canada-China relations in the way that China wants to do it. And the idea of having a partnership with a country that the Commons, through a unanimous resolution, determined was engaged in genocide and facilitates third world dictatorships by providing them with Chinese surveillance technologies and all of the other things that China does, menacing Taiwan, the abrogation of the Hong Kong agreement and so on, is completely extraordinary to me. I mean, we're partners. I don't want to be partners with, I don't feel that Canada should partner up with a regime whose values are so discordant with what makes our country great.
Shifting gears a little bit, the PRC has the largest number of accredited diplomats in Canada other than the United States. The PRC's diplomatic presence is significantly larger than countries such as India, Japan, the United Kingdom, and France. In fact, in 2023, the PRC, for example, had 176 diplomats in Canada compared to 178 diplomats in the United States, which, by the way, the United States is the PRC's top trading partner and most popular immigration destination for PRC nationals, yet they had only 2 more Chinese diplomats than in Canada, notwithstanding that the United States is 10 times larger. So should it be of concern, the size of the PRC's diplomatic mission in Canada, should that be of concern? And why do you think the PRC has such a large diplomatic footprint in Canada?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Japan has 40-some, India has 30-some. They have, as you say, 176. We don't have anything like that number of diplomats in China, so why isn't it reciprocal? Diplomats are supposed to, when they're accepted by Canada, they provide what diplomatic function they will be maintaining. The question is, are Chinese diplomats so inefficient that they need such large numbers to engage in legitimate diplomatic function? Or is it that about 70% of them are engaged in espionage, influence operations, harassment of Canadians of Chinese origin, and other things which are not consistent with their diplomatic function? You know, I would like to see their cohort cut down to the number that they need to actually function in a diplomatic way. And I mean, here in Ottawa, it's not just that former convent on St. Patrick Street. They have other buildings in our city to accommodate the large number of Chinese operatives, not to speak of proxies being run by Chinese diplomats in these so-called police stations, similarly engaged in activities which I believe are in violation of Canadian law, to which the perpetuator should be made accountable. But there again, we're not expelling people that I believe CSIS knows are espionage agents. The only one we expelled was Zhao Wei after it was exposed in the press that this gentleman had been involved in activities to seek to pressure the family of Michael Chong. You know, I just don't want any Chinese spies to be operating freely in our country, and the fact that we don't expel any of them, we don't make any of them persona non grata or bring their proxies to Canadian courts to be made accountable for these alleged activities, I think sends a signal to China that Canada is open territory for this kind of thing. It also sends a signal to the United States that Canada is open territory for Chinese infiltration, and can the United States trust us in important collaboration on security and military issues?
Thank you so much, and thank you for finishing your answer at exactly 6 minutes. It was exceptional work.